Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wrestling with Statistics, the only show that takes the unique approach to looking at the world of professional wrestling through the lens of statistics, analytics, and everything in between. I am your host, Ryan Neitzey, and with me, as always, is the man of a new changed Twitter handle, Craig from Pro Wrestling Musings. Craig, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, Ryan. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. We're coming off of, obviously, that's why we're here. That's why we're slightly delayed in this episode. We're coming off of Double or Nothing, AEW's pay-per-view, their pandemic pay-per-view. So, I'm feeling pretty good.
That would be more of a Young Bucks name for the pay-per-view.
The pandemic pay-per-view?
Pandemic pay-per-view.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Just call it Pandemics or I don't know.
Yeah.
Call off a great board game. But yeah, I'm pretty good. I did my mother was in town, so I did see the show slightly late and slightly tardy, but I'm here. I'm ready to discuss. I'm ready to go through the stats with you. But besides all that, how are you doing, Craig?
Yeah, we've done that bit. How are you doing? I'm fine. How are you?
I just wanna know how you're doing, man.
Just want to double check in.
Yeah, I just want to double check. It's double or nothing,
Oh, what a good, well planned out bit for the podcast.
Okay, now that we've gotten through that talking script point, let's move on to the next thing. So Double or Nothing was this weekend, folks. So if you missed it, I would say recommend it. I don't know. What's your overall thoughts of AEW's Double or Nothing, Greg? Watching the whole card, what do you think of it all?
Good, yeah. 3.5, 4 out of 5, maybe.
Yeah, I would say it was a pretty good show. I would argue, I think it's a solid argument to make that obviously, maybe there's a bias or whatever, but I think there is a solid argument in saying that this was probably the best wrestling show during the pandemic, including other wrestling companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't think of any other one right off the top of my head, but it was really good for obviously the circumstances and for the times.
I mean, to be fair, WrestleMania did do a fantastic job with their top title matches.
I mean, yeah, you can watch them in like one Twitter clip. That's called social media, baby. That's how you get the engagement. People are like, "Oh,
are you trying to suggest that WWE are kind of framing their entire main event scene around being available in GIFs?"
I'm not suggesting that. I'm confirming that. I called up Vince earlier today, and I've confirmed that is the case. So yes, we're not only talking about stats, we're also a news journalistic program here. So you're welcome, folks, for these solid confirmations.
Solid takes.
Solid takes. Hot confirmations. Is that what it is? Anyways, yeah. So Double or Nothing was this weekend. I think it was, like we said, a pretty good pay-per-view. So if you have not seen it, I would recommend it. It's got that steep price of, what was it, $59, $49, whatever it was.
Not if you're not in America.
Oh, what is the price for you in Scotland? What is
it's like £18. It's weird. It was like $20 listed as $20 on Fight, but then obviously currency, you get charged £18, which is strange that they were advertising it as $20.
£18 to American currency. American would be, it'd be $22 at least. I don't know how much it's changed in the past couple days. But okay, interesting. Why are you getting it for $20? Why am I? Hold on. Why am I spending $50 on a pay-per-view?
That's a very good question.
Man, and then you also get the Fight Dynamites, where it's like you can watch it during commercials and stuff.
Yeah, which is quite handy if you're trying to do stats and stuff.
I guess that's fair. Man, why? I don't know who I have to talk to about this. I don't know, some manager or something. I have to pull a grade 8, as the internet call it, a Karen, and just call up a manager and be like, I have a complaint. Anyways, are we getting off too many tangents? I don't know. So
possibly.
Speaking of tangents, my girlfriend told me recently that I do too many tangents, and she has started to, if I'm telling a story, started to time me that I have like like in board games they have those little clocks, the timer
Chess,
stand
yeah.
clocks. She will have one on hand and she'll flip the timer on me, and I have the time that's left in the clock. Well, what is it, a minute or whatever, to finish my story. To force me to avoid doing tangents. So she's training me well. I don't know.
She's training you to talk less.
Yes, I don't want to say less. I want to say efficient. I'll defend her and say talk efficiently.
You need to start just giving like one word answers.
I know it's I need to think quality of words over quantity of words, I guess is the phrase I'm going with. Anyways, Double or Nothing happened this previous weekend, and we're gonna go through it. We're gonna go through a specific amount of matches on the look at it statistically. Of course, there are some matches like the Stadium Stampede where you can't really do statistics on. I mean, that match is all over the place.
Although to be fair, Matt Jackson did score a 100-yard touchdown. Is that the words? Is that the lingo for the sport?
Yes, that's great. He did a 100-yard touchdown. That's 6 points, and then was it? I believe it was before that. He did a moonsault off the field goal, which is, I guess you can argue, 3 points right there. So I guess the Elite won 10-0. So good for them. But yes, we've gotten some list of matches here. Let's tangents aside. Tangents are out of the room. Let's get down to business, Craig, and let's go over this card. Like previous reviews we've done on this show, this network, I guess, whatever we are, the band of people. We're gonna start with the semi-main first. Try to get the big talking points out of the way, and then we'll go through the rest of the card and end up with the Stadium Stampede. Sound good, everybody at home? And then we file in just a bunch of like, yeah, and then we get into the semi-main, which was Jon Moxley defeating Mr. Brodie Lee by technical submission in a singles match for the AEW World Championship in 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Craig, I'm going to throw it to you first. What are some of your takes, your sort of ideas coming out of this match?
Sure. So I'll just run through the kind of accumulation of stats that I have here. So it went just over 15 minutes, 26 seconds. Moxley won the strike battle, 40-24. Then Brodie Lee, more strike downs, 2-1, 10-3 in terms of grapple use, going to Mr. Brodie Lee. They both did a dive each. Moxley's submission at the end lasted 14 seconds. Lee didn't use any submissions, and Moxley also used 2 finishers over the course of that match. When we break down that match into sort of 5-minute chunks, Brodie Lee comes out to the gates hot. So I've kind of got this like offense value kind of thing that I do, where so what do? I give 1 point for every strike, 3 points for a strike down, 4 points for like a grapple slam type thing, 5 points for a dive, and then for every 5 minutes of every 5 seconds of submissions that they do, it's like a point for each 5. So and then I use that to like on a graph to represent kind of who's dealing out the damage type thing. So in that kind of first 5 minutes, Brodie Lee's up there with over 50 points worth of damage, and Moxley only manages to dish out around about, I think it's about 24, 25. And the reason for that is, even though over the course of the match, Jon Moxley's throwing more offense in general, a lot of that is strikes that don't knock Brodie Lee down. Brodie Lee goes heavy with the grapples in this match, lots of slams from him, and in those first 5 minutes, he hits 6 grapple slams, which is quite a lot. So yeah, that was kind of the start of the match. They're far closer in the second 5 to 10 minutes. About 20 points worth of offense from Brodie Lee and about 14 points worth of offense from Jon Moxley. So things have slowed right down. Brodie Lee still on top. He hit 3 grapples in this portion of the match, including one off the top rope, avalanche grapple. Whereas Moxley struggling to get in offense, but Moxley goes on a bit of a tear from minutes 10 through to 15. There's a double arm DDT there where Brodie Lee kicks out at 1. Big strong kick out. But then there's also, just before that, there's the paradigm shift through the stage, which of course busted Brodie Lee open. And there's also a slew of strikes there from Jon Moxley, 14 strikes in a row. He's really going for it. Paradigm shift and kick out. And he then needs to resort to the sleeper type, the maneuver that wins it. So it's a very interesting match. Strong start from Brodie Lee, more grapples than your average wrestler would do. And Jon Moxley kind of takes the punishment, is resilient. And then, unlike his usual performances, instead of just hitting the paradigm shift for the win, he needs to hit 2 plus the kind of snap double arm DDT and then submission.
Which I kind of like that finish a lot. Going at it as like Brodie Lee is this force of nature. You do the paradigm shift through the stage, which busts him open, then do another paradigm shift and then a sleeper. It's like, okay, he's in terms of being protected. And, we don't want Brodie Lee to look too weak. The guy went through the stage, took another finisher, and then got knocked out in 14 seconds, which small amount of time, but seeing as that he was bleeding from the skull, I think it's reasonable on that end.
Yeah, I mean the short amount of time didn't bury him or anything, because it was essentially literally after the kick out of the second paradigm shift of the match.
Yeah, this was a very good match. Looking at this, I top down. Coming into this, I said on a previous show that this match wasn't necessarily one of a match that I was really looking forward to or whatever. But then it became, as we were going through the stats, coming up with how we are sort of seeing it based on stats, what this match looks like it's going to be, and coming into this match, I was like, okay, I'm getting excited. Looking at what we wrote down previously, Craig, the match is different than this match came out different than how we expected it. I'll rip off that Band-Aid now. I mean, we expected this match to sort of play out like Brodie Lee being this unstoppable force and Moxley trying to persevere. And instead, match offense, 58% Moxley. Moxley gets a little bit more match offense. He's reversing a little bit more. Obviously, butt ton of strikes, but, even though we've seen that strikes potentially don't matter as much when it comes to a win in previous episodes. But yeah, then like Brodie Lee with the grapples, Brodie Lee with the reversals, even though he's got more reversals, whatnot. It ended up being that, even with technically double the strike downs, that Moxley still gets the win over Mr. Brodie Lee. I just thought it was very interesting. What did you think?
I think if you want to construct a kind of a statistical story here, you can. We've spoken a lot, and you alluded to it just there. We've spoken a lot about how Jon Moxley has, he was 11 or 12 wins on the bounce. I think it was 12 coming into this match, and in a lot of the bigger matches there, he'd taken more offense than he dished out. He was resilient. He was your resilient champion.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd booked him very much as that. He takes a ton of beating. His opponents can't put him down. Then he hits the paradigm shift. Whereas here, to avoid oversimplifying the stats, just because Moxley got 49 offensive moves in total and Brodie Lee only got 35, Jon Moxley only hit 3 grapples, a dive, and 14 seconds of submission. Everything else was strikes, whereas Brodie Lee hit 10 grapples and a dive. So, Jon Moxley didn't differentiate his offense that much. Brodie Lee was strong, pulling out all the big power moves. And where Jon Moxley took the offense percentage in this match, but if you take into consideration 40 of those were strikes, and doing some quick counting here, 15, 18 of those came after Brodie Lee had kicked out at 1. after he'd taken the double arm DDT after the paradigm shift through the stage. So the statistical story here is that Jon Moxley only kind of took the match offense advantage here after Brodie Lee had made that big statement of kicking out of the double arm DDT at 1 after he was busted open by going through the stage. So in a way, Jon Moxley broke his own pattern to put away the kind of strength and power that Brodie Lee had been built up to be in this match.
Yeah. Also, to be fair, I guess a lot of those
Which I'm really pleased with as a take from myself, just to pat my own
back. You gotta put over yourself. I mean, that's called self-confidence right there. No, I agree. Like Moxley broke from what we were expecting him. We were expecting him to be the perseverant one. We were expecting Moxley maybe to be the one that kicks out at 1 instead of Brodie Lee or something, being like, I'm not done, mother trucker or whatever.
We spoke at length about how he'd survived Pac and he'd survived the Inner Circle, and who else did he?
Hager.
Hager and Jericho in the hardcore match with Omega, where the stats has all been very much his offense was around 40 to 45% in those matches.
Yeah, and here if anything, it's like he is a perseverant guy, but when he gets pissed off, he goes for it. I was like, also to be fair, I was like, he's beating down a guy who's busted open and already on the ground. So it's maybe his strikedown numbers would have been higher if Brodie Lee was standing. But
possibly.
But still, it's like he sees that like Brodie Lee is bleeding from the skull, after that, that desperation paradigm shift through the stage.
Yes.
Goes for another one, and then he's like, I gotta strike while the iron's hot, and he did. And that I would argue, one could argue, is that's what really did it for Jon Moxley.
It was almost a little bit of New Japan Jon Moxley.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Bag of tricks. He beat Shingo with a submission in Japan when he didn't have the confidence that he could beat him in the striking match. So I'd like to be with that character.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I'm interested. Obviously, you're always interested where matches. Something that I was listening to like a preview recently, and I just remember the idea that in other companies you could have had a fake finish, but in AEW there's going to be someone that wins. There's going to be someone that loses. So I'm always interested when it comes to going into a match, but also coming out. Where are we going next with Jon Moxley? Where are we going next for Mr. Brodie Lee and the rest of the Dark Order? This was a loss. So what happens now for both of these? Well, I guess Moxley, we know, he's going to date with Destiny with the machine himself.
I think Moxley's fine. But what they do next with Brodie Lee will be interesting.
Yeah. I like this pattern with Jon Moxley's title defenses where it's always against a guy bigger than him. It's Hager, it's Mr. Brodie Lee, it's Brian Cage.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea that maybe they're building up this thing about I wonder if the person that beats Moxley is going to be someone that's not a big giant dude.
Yeah, that's almost like WWE Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
kick Samoa Joe out of the ring easily enough. Braun Strowman easily enough. Then he has trouble with Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, Finn Balor.
It's someone that you're not expecting, and what I mean is, I was gonna say the smart joke would be MJF, but the real joke is Orange Cassidy swooping in. Well, not really swooping in, but slowly walking over.
Darby Allin was the
Darby Allin.
Outcome of that theory.
Darby Allin. I don't know. Now they're coming out of Double or Nothing, because obviously predicting all that stuff is so far away. But prepping for All Out in August, right? August.
I think
so. Who will challenge for Moxley then? That's the question I have. Assuming he can get over the Machine, Brian Cage.
Yeah.
But I thought this match was good. I obviously I talked about it was not necessarily the match I was expecting to see. Because I was expecting to see Brodie Lee dominating Moxley, and there was no real domination, I would argue. I did really like the idea, and I joked with you earlier that I like the idea that Brodie Lee was just sort of being a like, a butthole for no reason, really. Like, just staring at Big Swole and sort of
Mhm.
taunting at Big Swole, or
Yeah.
going over to the librarians and knocking over their laptops and books and whatnot. Which I just was sort of just like, I don't wonder what that is. Um, Maybe that's he's trying to recruit the Peter Avalon or whatever. I don't know. Who knows?
He's in a tough spot now though, because he left WWE, went to Jericho's podcast, said all that stuff. None of it unreasonable, but
Mhm.
he did build up expectations of himself, and like I kind of like him. I kind of like the character, but I get the criticism, and the gear's rubbish. The
I thought this gear was the best he's had. I
So
like.
so did I, but I've heard an awful lot of other people being down on it, and I
Mhm.
get that too. I don't know. I just he yeah he kind of I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see if they can make him work or not.
I think the biggest thing is that's troubling Brodie Lee is like similar things that may be troubling, like a Drew McIntyre type, where it's like the moment they get this big push, a pandemic happens, like
Mhm.
worst case scenario. If you're trying to push a guy, what really helps pushing a guy is having a crowd cheering them to
I
really know if
think
it's
you're
working.
being I think you're being too kind. I don't know if a crowd would have helped him too much. It might have even hindered him.
Possibly. I mean, remember that he was supposed to debut in his hometown.
Y- Sure, yeah, and that might have given him a confidence boost and started things off right. I've forgotten about that. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Like, I mean, obviously, like in his hometown, he probably would have gotten a
Mhm.
huge ass pop,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
the concern would then be how much does it transfer over week to week from city to
Yeah.
city. But obviously, we have
I
no
just
idea
think
at
a
this
lot
point.
of things that have been criticisms of him could have been reflected in the crowd. And
Hmm.
for him at the moment, it's he can't be too disheartened because he hasn't been in front of a crowd, he hasn't got the reaction. He's still unsure of really how he's doing. It's hard, Twitter is not the real world. It's not
Yeah.
the judgments of Twitter. It's a subculture within itself,
Hmm.
and he's not been in front of that crowd yet. But my feeling is that him being in front of a crowd might have been a more of a stark reality of where exactly his version of the Dark Order gimmick is.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have got the response that he would have liked.
Yeah, and it's also tough because he's also was like missing Dark Order participants.
Yeah, yeah, this is true.
It's one of those things where it's like it's really because it's one of those things where it's like it's really hard to gauge where
Mhm.
it could have been because it's talking about like it's such we're living in such a wild time that it's like the opposite of you know what I mean, like it's
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just guessing
yeah,
based
we're all
off.
just guessing.
Yeah.
But either way, I thought this was a good match. I
Mhm.
gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a solid, great match. I really liked it a lot. I liked it a lot more than I was expecting at the very least. Maybe my
Okay.
expectations were lowered. I don't know, but I
All right.
definitely like this. There were some bits that I just really enjoyed.
You're definitely the face of this podcast thus far. I think I've been the grumpy one. I'm saying 3.25, I think.
Okay, that's not bad.
So I was talking before about how I need to assign words to the numbers to help me make the judgments, and I would say that a 3 is good and a 3.5 is very good.
Hmm.
So I'd say like 3.25.
Hmm.
I mean, if I was being very mathematical, I'd probably say something like 3.4, more towards very good, but yeah, 3.25.
I can't wait for like months from now for you to have some sort of like I remember what was it in college? My friend would rate movies based
Mhm.
on a list of criteria. So they would have like cinematography,
Sure, sure.
acting, directing, production design, etc., 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 and give a grade out of 0 to 10 on each of those points.
I think I see where you're going. I think even as the stats guy for Wrestling, I don't know. I think it's a feeling.
You start getting that itch where you're like, oh, hold on. Trust me, we talked about it previously where I have the notebook where I have a Google sheet. Currently, what I'm working on is potentially who can have the best, in my opinion, potentially greatest match, I guess, across companies. Basically, like I'm taking like everyone's matches and having some sort of a
Yeah.
probability matrix of like, oh, if Sasha Banks wrestled Mayu Iwatani,
Oh, that's interesting.
what are the odds that I will, or what's the probability I should say
Mhm.
that I will like that match, or that's going to be a great match.
See, I'm kind of hoping that the next thing from Grapple is that they'll convert their match ratings. They'll extract from all their match ratings which wrestlers had like the best kind of average. They kind of do it already. They'll, like, for example, last year Will Ospreay had the most matches in the top 100 or something, but like wrestler performance ratings or something as well.
Oh, I agree. I mean, that's basically what I wanted from Grapple, and I decided, you know
Hmm.
what, I'll do it, and that's what I've been doing for the past
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
um,
It does sound like it's like a one man kind of operation there. So it might be a future type thing if it grows.
we'll pitch it. We'll start pitching it. Let's start moving on to the buy-in,
Mm.
which was a tag team match between Best Friends and Private Party to determine the number one contender for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, and it took place in 15 minutes and 10 seconds with the Best Friends winning on top with, of course, their was it Strong Zero finisher getting the
Mhm.
victory. Now you mentioned that this match, you didn't see this match, correct, Craig?
I mentioned what? Sorry.
You mentioned that you haven't seen this match previously.
No, no, I haven't watched this yet. I can guess some stats if you want.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do that. Guess the stats.
No, no, I haven't seen this match yet.
Well, I guess I'll talk about it then. It was a good match. It was an okay. It was an okay match. It was sort of, we were previewing it a little bit, and we were sort of looking at, this match being like, okay, Private Party was sort of ahead of the demos of like strike downs, match offense, tags, double team maneuvers. Just they were doing this all despite being ranked very, a lot lower than Best Friends. Maybe there was, even then, like, they take less offense, the reversal rate is higher. So, like, the idea was maybe Private Party can eke this out. But you're watching this match, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it's the fact that Private Party are a little rusty from obviously pandemic issue stuff. But
Mhm.
this match was okay. There was a lot of tag team and double team maneuvers, but sadly there was a couple botches that happened on Private Party's end that did not make it look great. Obviously, like there's no like botch stat, and I feel like that'd be a mean stat to make. But there's definitely this thing about like they went for a lot of double team maneuvers, but then they just messed up or something didn't click or whatever. I made a point to you earlier that it was weird because there's a moment in the match that Trent Beretta loses his bandana, and it was sort of this
Uh-huh.
joke of like, oh, he's got the bandana, it's always on, he never takes it off or whatever. And the moment he takes it off is really the moment the match fell apart. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what? That something about this bandana is magical or something. I
Sounds
don't know.
sounds like a children's story.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the next Young Bucks, Adam
I
Page,
I
Cody's
want to
children's
be a
story.
wrestler. Oh, okay, take this.
Yeah, it is the magic gear. I don't know, magic bandana, something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know. But yeah, it is like all of a sudden it sort of fell apart or something. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Timing was off. There's a couple of botches here and there. I would say I wouldn't necessarily. This isn't a recommendation. I mean, it is free to watch online, so maybe
Mhm.
go for it if you have the time and you're bored. But it's
I
not really
will.
the
I
huge
will watch it.
recommendation.
I will watch it. The reason I didn't, and this is out of the kind of wrestling world, but I was writing reports this weekend for teaching, so my time was limited. I will watch it eventually, but the overall consensus seems to be that it was a bit of a private party match. They did some cool stuff. There were some botches. They're still a bit green.
Yes.
That seemed to be, yeah.
Yes, I would agree with that consensus. It was definitely felt like a match that was supposed to potentially put over Private Party to make them look
Mhm.
good, but ultimately Best Friends get the win.
Uh,
Instead, it showcased Private Party's greenness.
which
Um,
is fine. Which is which is fine because I don't think anybody goes into a private party match looking for a like a revival standard tag team wrestling match. You're there to see the dives and um, the impressive shooting star presses and the silly um, double team moves they do.
mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think part of the reason that uh I guess maybe people have that sort of expectation or want better for Private Party is that, and I in a good this is a good way, but also a bad thing, that everyone looks back and thinks about that Private Party Young Bucks match, and they
Yes.
remember that, and then commentary's putting that over like, oh, they beat the Young Bucks, and then you keep reminding us about this match, and that was a great match, that was a really good match, but then it's like if something you forget that they're green, and when it comes to this, you're like, oh, okay, they're not as good as I remember them or whatever. Um,
Yeah, that's possibly just a case of the Young Bucks being better at wrestling than people perhaps think they are and kind of holding that match together.
Agreed. I would agree with that. I gave this what did I give this match? I gave it 2.25. Yes,
Okay.
2.25 stars. It was like a lot of botches or whatever. It was just sort of falling apart. It's yeah, one of those things. If you have the free time, watch it. Obviously, you need to watch it for your stats eventually. But if you not a high recommend here. Let's move
Fair.
along to the casino ladder match for, of course, that future AEW World Championship match, which was later revealed to be that the winner of this match goes on to Fight for the Fallen, I don't
Fighter
Fighter
Fest.
Fest. It was like
Yeah.
one of those F
One of those, yeah.
one of those F pay-per-views. This match, of course, involved a bunch of competitors, but the winner was the mystery competitor, which was the Machine Brian Cage, with Taz in his corner,
His
making
orange
his wearing the orange towel, making his debut in the promotion, defeating Darby Allin, Colt Cabana, Orange Cassidy, Joey Janela, who of course replaced Ray Phoenix, Scorpio Sky, Kip Sabian,
Joey
Frankie.
Janela was good as well.
Yeah, he was real good. I mean, he
Yeah.
had to make he probably had to make up for a lot of Phoenix spots and stuff,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
but
We
he
did
did
catch
good. He
that
did a good
goal. He
job.
did some big stuff.
He did a good job. I love to see Joey Janela when Joey Janela seems like a guy that, and I don't mean this as a slight, but he seems like a guy that when he gets the tap on the shoulder that's like, hey, go, he'll go.
Mhm.
But if he doesn't have that, he's not going to have like an amazing match every single night.
I've heard that he had a match. I think it was David Starr that he had a match with last year, like a 2 out of 3 fall, or no, Iron Man. Some
Yeah.
quite hard Iron Man match in Americana or something.
Yes, American Rana
Right.
2019. I think it was a 60-minute Iron Man match against David Starr. They previously had, I think it was American Rana 2018, I
Mhm.
believe. They previously had like a,
The two of them.
well, yeah, it was the two of them, David Starr, Joey
Uh,
Janela. It was a barbed wire match, I think.
all right.
That's free online. You can watch that. That was a great match. But
I
yeah,
suppose
like,
that maybe lines up with what you're saying though. He might need that. He's not going to be your guy that holds the match together, but if he has, a really good opponent, he can go.
yeah, or even like if you need someone to step up and like,
Mhm.
really he needs to do something great. Joey Janela is your consistent guy, I feel like.
Yeah, I was surprised that he wasn't in this from the get-go and that Frankie Kazarian was.
I can see that. Yeah, they obviously wanted to on that end, on the Frankie Kazarian end, wanted to use him as that sort of like SCU against SCU
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, I agree with that. I don't know why Joey Janela wasn't in to begin with.
because
Seeing
when
that he was
when
coming
when I
back.
was when I was kind of trying to figure that out, I was like, "Well, is something going to happen between SCU? Like, why else is Kazarian in this?"
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, we both saw this match, so we can talk about this a little bit. What were your thoughts? I guess we'll start off with this. What were your thoughts on Brian Cage coming to AEW?
So I don't have stats for this match because it'd be ridiculous. Stats for multi-man matches like this are a bit contrived. They don't really tell you a huge amount. Brian Cage, I like him. He's interesting, impressive looking guy. I think from my understanding of what I know of him from like Impact, he does some quite, he's like one of these new modern Keith Lee-ish big guys that can do some aerial stuff. I think.
Yes.
I've not seen a huge amount of him more out with like the kind of Sammy Callahan stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. That bump was it Janelle or something? Somebody got what's the name of the move? The Death Valley Driver on top of, so
Yes.
essentially the bit where he gets buried under the ladders, the guardrail, and that giant poker chip, and then he's there for like a good few minutes, maybe even like over 5 minutes, and then I think somebody gets Death Valley Drivered on top.
I believe Joey Janela Death Valley drives Orange Cassidy on
right.
top.
Yeah, that. You just like think about how the ladders must have been sitting on top of him with the force put on top, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about Brian Cage in AEW. Not only do you get another big man in a company that was starting off of a lot of smaller guys, but yeah, like you said, he is one of those modern big men that he can do moonsaults, he can do all this stuff. Obviously, what made him well known in the wrestling circle to begin with was his Lucha Underground run, where
Okay.
he was the Machine, Brian Cage, and he was just this guy that can just put away people, and he can go the distance. He can do these high flying sort of things, despite being a ginormous guy. It's one of that same idea. That's where he gets his name. It's like, how can this human do it? Well, he's not a human. He's a machine.
Cool. Yeah.
And then you mix in the suplex machine Taz into that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
exciting.
I like that.
That's very exciting. And I'm excited to see where Brian Cage goes. Obviously, he has now earned a AEW World Championship match at Fyter Fest.
What do you think of the idea that's been kind of floated around on podcasts that, wins and losses matter, blah, blah, blah. Guy comes in, title shot.
I don't know. Because I like the idea of wins and losses matter, and that the rankings should be important. Obviously that's what we like to hear, is that you want someone who is going to be the next challenger to be someone that is on some sort of tear to then go challenge for whatever, challenge for whatever title at this point now with 2 titles. But at the same vein, there is something in terms of a booking style of having these sort of like, the Casino Battle Royal or the World Championship, the Casino Ladder Match, where it's like, a bunch of lower card guys that are going to get an opportunity that they may not have anytime soon. So there's something value in that. Plus, it's also, it is being that to answer your question about it being like a new person like Brian Cage. I don't know. I think it doesn't hurt. I mean, obviously, if you want to build Brian Cage up as a obvious main event level threat guy, then he needs to jump up immediately to a world title shot like this. Because if we didn't have a match like this, he would have to debut. I guess sort of he would have to act like a Brodie Lee, where he would have to debut, then go on a tear through everybody in the promotion, and then have a world title shot. Obviously, we don't know when Fyter Fest is taking place, but
I suppose it depends how they see him as well. If, like you're saying, it's a long-term thing and he's in it for the long haul, and they see him as a guy in their main event scene for a while, then it makes a lot of sense. And again, I agree with you as well that I like the wins and losses too, and I like the idea of it being earned. But I think if every single challenger has to climb the rankings every single time, then that's going to get pretty tedious. I was fine with the Scorpio Sky thing. I thought that was good.
Yeah, Scorpio Sky thing, the Jungle Boy stuff. Obviously, that wasn't a world title shot, but still, it's something that it allows when you're in between. I think keep the pay-per-views as your number one contender.
Yeah, I agree.
But these, interspersing while we're waiting for August and we have to do a world title shot, let's do something like this where now he gets the challenge for the world title. Because I imagine Fyter Fest is just going to be a Dynamite. Not like an actual.
Yeah, I don't know what it'll be.
Because Fyter Fest was working with CEO, but obviously CEO Gaming is not doing anything probably this year. No conventions this year.
Sure, of course.
But yeah, I mean, it's a way to jump up people to get opportunities that they don't have. The problem also is
it's variety as well. It can't be the rankings every single time. That would kill it.
Yeah, it gives something it has variety and gives a fresh breath, But also it is this thing of if someone wins, they've established with the casino battle royal that you do it, then you go off and then you win or lose or whatever. There needs to be a point where someone wins the title. There needs to be a point where it's not a number one contendership opportunity. It's someone wins, let's say a Darby Allin wins the casino ladder match and then he wins the title. And it's like an upset sort of thing. He wasn't ranked at all and he wins the title. There is something, the idea of it being like earned in the ranking sort of define that earned.
A backdoor type thing.
Yeah, but eventually doing these sort of things establishes that you can do that down the line, but eventually you have to do that. It's the same thing with like New Japan where you have, the G1 winner carrying around this briefcase and defending it. They haven't done it yet, but eventually someone has to take the briefcase.
I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying, but I would argue that
G1 winner loses briefcase.
Yeah, and you obviously know it's going to be like a Jay White or something, like heel guy who wins it. Who takes the briefcase off of someone.
Will Ospreay wins the G1 and then Jay White gets the shot.
Yeah, you know that's gonna happen. That's what's gonna be. That's heel heat, baby. But I don't know. I think it's but at the same time, I bring up the New Japan example, and obviously they haven't done it yet. Yeah. What it is in a booking sense, it establishes an out in case you need something quick or whatever. If Will Ospreay gets injured or whatever, I don't know, and you lose that main event, you have him lose a match, and then it goes to Jay White, and then Cody.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's a good thing to have, like if something's not working and you need to pull the emergency trigger, this is what you do.
Is it Mr. Kennedy and Edge, I believe?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can also do like a thing where it's like, Jay White wins it from Will Ospreay and then Will Ospreay wins it back and
wins it back. Yeah, that would be fine.
It's like that's something too, but yeah, there needs to be it's a way to have freshness. But if something's getting really stale and you need to surprise people, you do it and then it's like, "Oh, okay, whoa." Yeah, that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, it's also Brian Cage. He's been multi-time world champion, so I think I can see why they view him as a big deal.
Yeah, and I was happy to see him. He's intriguing.
Yeah. What did I give this? I said it was a 3-star. I gave it a classic 3, a gentleman's 3. I heard. What were your thoughts on it?
2.75. Maybe go to a 3.
Okay.
I was a bit disappointed by this. Maybe that was expectations.
Yeah, I for me it was a little bit of expectations, a little bit. I think it was a little too long.
It was quite long, yeah.
28 minutes and 30 seconds. Jeez. Let's keep the ball rolling. Let's talk about MJF versus Jungle Boy. Of course, MJF gets the victory 17 minutes into the match. Craig, hit me with those thoughts.
Jungle Boy did slightly better in terms of total offense. But MJF's offense was a bit more varied, a bit stronger. He did more grapples, he did more strike downs, whereas Jungle Boy did more dives, as you'd expect, more submission from Mr. Maxwell Jacob Feinstein, if you watch old stuff. Then when we look at the match, it's a dead heat in the first 5 minutes. The way that I value moves with that kind of number system that I spoke about earlier, they got the exact same score. It's around 31-32 looking at the graph, which is cool coincidence. After that, Jungle Boy takes off in the kind of the second period, the second 5 minutes. Jungle Boy hits no fewer than 5 dives. He really takes to the sky to get the advantage, and he kind of dominates MJF in that little portion of the match. MJF catches up with him in from kind of 10 to 15 minutes, just below him, and he kind of outdoes Jungle Boy ever so slightly in the last few minutes of the match. Controversial here. So around the kind of 9 to 11 minute kind of mark, there's a bit, MJF's been struggling. He's not been in the match as much as Jungle Boy. And what MJF does to rectify this is he takes to the sky. He does what I've been categorizing as a dive. I use the word dive because I think that's what they call it on the kind of old wrestling games. It was just a diving move. It's been pointed out to me that this is maybe not actually a dive. It is. It is within the dictionary definition of what a dive is. I'm a teacher, I know. Maybe. Shut up, Lance. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I've completely distracted myself. Yeah, MJF does what is a diving foot stomp from the second rope. The exact same move that he did the last time. A move that was called by Excalibur a diving foot stomp on the AEW Dark, the show after that Twitter thing, if you know what I'm referring to, which we're not going to bother going into. Yeah, that MJF stepped slightly out of character. He put a little bit more effort in. He took a slight risk. Jungle Boy could have drop kicked him out of the sky. It's out with MJF's kind of manifesto, if you will. However, MJF won a very technical match, a very well wrestled match, with a slight bit of cheating at the end there. He shoves Aubrey Edwards into the rope to knock Jungle Boy off the top rope as he went for another dive, perhaps going for dive number, or what would we be on to at that point? Going for dive number 6 was maybe going to the well once too often from Jungle Boy.
Yeah, MJF being a guy that is, the character. I'm gonna say this on your end. The MJF being the guy that is the character of a bully. He is someone that he doesn't. What's the word? I don't want to say.
Careful, you're killing the Twitter trolls version of Santa Claus.
I love that we're just referencing a bunch, but not really outright saying it. Maybe that's all. Maybe that's another episode for another day. But MJF is a guy that's like a bully, and I don't know if this is necessarily the word, but the guy, like, he doesn't necessarily like value what his opponent is going to bring to the table, because obviously he's a guy that he believes that he's better than you. So that when all of us, even then, look at this match. They start off basically the same, and then Jungle Boy jumps ahead, and MJF is probably thinking to himself, "Oh shit, he's getting the upper hand. I need to do something that stops him." He knocks referee Aubrey Edwards into the ropes. He goes for another dive. He has to do stuff that's like, okay, I need to go outside of my comfort zone of being a bully to get back this upper hand and get the victory, and then eventually get an actual win with a pretty solid roll up there.
Wrestling move, yeah.
But yeah, it's like he needs to go. He's a bully, and then once the opponent starts winning, he's like has to not be the bully. He has to be like, okay, I have to prove that I'm actually good. It's like he is actually good. He's just like lazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. He can do it. He just doesn't.
He doesn't. He feels that he doesn't need to, which is, he goes with his bully. He goes with his character, which is like, it's the perfect thing, because it's the perfect thing for this promotion as well, is that he's a guy this is a character, but when he needs to pull it out, it characteristically makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's who am I thinking of? Flip Gordon, I think, was he's like maybe the most obvious kind of version of that. Like, his literal gimmick was he did loads of flips. It was all over his literal name, his gear, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he joined Villain Enterprises, now I don't watch a huge amount of Ring of Honor, but from what I've seen, he essentially stopped doing flips unless it was absolutely necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, he has the skills, but he won't do it unless he absolutely needs to. And MJF is the same way, and I liked it. Obviously, MJF here
sometimes does that as well, doesn't he? He'll like go to the top rope, crowd start cheering, and he kind of waves them off and just kind of hops down.
Yeah,
I think maybe. Don't know.
I have to remember. But yeah, I thought this was a really good match. I thought it makes the story of the match I thought was really good. Being done in what was it 17 minutes. I thought it was a really solid 17-minute match. It was definitely one of those matches. Obviously, that's the sort of the advertising of it is that these are the future of the promotion, future of wrestling in general.
Absolutely.
And it was a really good match that made you made you feel like confident in the future of wrestling, where it's like, oh, this was good. And it also makes you can't wait for Jungle Boy to eventually get the win over MJF.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, they're foil for each other. Like, you've got your detestable heel and your very natural babyface. Like, Jungle Boy is something that WWE just can't have. They can't book this kind of character. They can't book baby faces. But this guy's a fantastic babyface. And then MJF bounces off that fantastically well because it's even better when he's horrible. And then Jungle Boy's got something to rally back from. They work perfectly together.
And I do want to say, in regards to that Jungle Boy being a fantastic babyface, just to put a little button on top of that, he hasn't said a single word in this promotion.
Yeah.
He's just wrestling, and he is a great. And people are saying that he's a great babyface. That's just, I think that goes to show that they know what they're doing.
Well, he's got, he's projecting himself without talking. It's, that's great.
It's perfect. I gave this 3 3/4 star, just a ear shy of 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this match.
I'm the same, 3.75.
Okay, let's keep moving down the line with the AEW TNT Championship match between Cody and Lance Archer. Of course, this was a match that everyone was sort of getting ready for. Of course, of the inclusion of Iron Mike Tyson, how can you not get ready for it? But yeah, greatly excited about this match as we were going towards it. Lance Archer being this gentleman that he not only is like a heavy hitter with his number of strikedowns and whatnot, but is also a guy that he asks for a lot of punishment, so he can sort of in a way absorb a lot of punishment. Cody being also like the ace of the promotion, being a guy that he can do a pretty good job. So I mean, with that out of the way, Craig, what are you thinking of this match?
So running through the stats, Cody 52% of the offense, just outdoes Lance Archer. We've spoken a lot in the past about how that's not an issue for Lance. He takes the punishment, laughs in your face, and then kicks you twice as hard. Mm-hmm. He had a better range of offense than Cody, which seems to be a pattern in this pay-per-view. Cody 41 strikes to Lance's 30. However, Lance 8 grapples to Cody's 4. 2 dives each. Cody submission time of 24 seconds, Lance 44 seconds. Cody hit 3 finishers, Lance hit 2. So interesting statistics there when we're kind of looking at the flow of those throughout the match. Lance did start heavier, quite literally. He hit the blackout, was the first offensive move of the match. And he dominated that first 5 minutes. He dominated the second 5 minutes, and he dominated the third 5 minutes. The kind of, if you can imagine the graph, it's that line for that kind of 15 minutes. They're almost parallel. Lance kind of essentially controls Cody at the same pace for the first 15 minutes.
Or if you don't want to visualize the graph, you can always watch the show on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube.
Yes, and there will be an article with these pictures on the website as well. So yeah, don't try to imagine.
I just want to put that little plug in there. But continue.
Yes, but then as we hit 15 minutes, things change almost immediately. Cody hits a top rope cutter, which is a signifier of a big tide change. Lance does kick out at a one count, staying strong. Cody hits a flurry of strikes. an eventual crossroads, which gets a 2 count. There's also an avalanche reverse brainbuster as we head towards 20 minutes, which was a really well done, really cool looking move. Just before the 15 minutes mark, there was the kind of the DDT spot, the spinebuster spot from the two men looking down the managers. But yeah, just before 20 minutes, we've got that reverse brainbuster. There's the Mike Tyson stuff. Arn gets kicked out. Jake gets kind of stared down by Tyson, and Cody hits 2 crossroads to get the win. Some people have suggested that Cody won this because Archer was lost without Jake, because he was distracted by Jake being kicked out, by being an old man being threatened by a professional boxer, perhaps. And yeah.
Yeah, I have a small little theory in that regards. Of course, if you're looking at the match offense pool here, obviously Lance Archer gets the victory, and we sort of alluded to it in a previous Dustin Rhodes Lance Archer match, where Dustin, he's getting his ass kicked in, but then he gets that little spike of offense in, but then eventually Archer gets the win. And so my theory on this match of why, because I'm looking at the stats, looking at the numbers, looking at the previous things, it's sort of like, why did Lance lose? He has more strike downs, which we've talked about being a potentially good factor. Even with just smaller average match offense, he still gets wins. So
it's been a trend for him.
It's even looking at the reversal rates. It's he's still been only had 20% previously. Now in this match, 19% reversal rate. Why did he lose? And my theory being is that in that spike of offense, in that comeback, I guess, that Cody had during that period, it became the whole shenanigans period with Arn Anderson, messing up Archer at one point, hitting the ropes, and then they getting kicked out, and then no Jake the Snake being there or whatnot. My theory being that maybe that was a turning point and enough of a distraction potentially for Archer that Cody was able to remain on top as well. So yeah, I was just interested by that point of like, I wonder if, because it's like, why should Archer lose here? And I think it's potentially because of Arn Anderson's not only interruption of the match, but then the distractions and everything that followed suit.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing that argument that I kind of suggested to you earlier is that Cody's comeback is very, very dramatic. He goes from kind of like an offense kind of value of around 16 for the 5 minutes from kind of 10 to 15 minutes, and then he jumps up to 40 in 15 to 20, and this is just before the managers are rejected. So it's a big rally, it's a big comeback, and that avalanche brainbuster in particular was a big move. But yeah, you could look at it either way.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Dustin in that TNT Championship tournament, Dustin's comeback looked to be, his offense valley looked to be the peak at 35 ish. So there's the argument to make that Cody's comeback was a stronger comeback, and it was able to retain the match. Remain. He was able to control the match for longer. Remain in control for the match longer. But yeah, I also love Iron Mike Tyson being this authoritative, authoritarian, like, oh yeah, respect the referees. You're out of here. Everyone's out of here. Hey, don't get involved. I'll beat you up with my fists.
He's well known for that kind of behavior.
Well known for being respect the authority.
It was odd. I heard it was on another podcast the other day. They were talking about how, I think I agree about how, like, I think it was Grapple podcast, and they were talking about how having Brodie Lee and Archer both lose, the two big guys that they've built up, having them both lose on the same night is perhaps kind of not the best call, because neither of them are looking as strong as they were. Neither of them are, both of them are kind of have lost their aura somewhat. And to go from having two very similarly booked big men to neither of them being in the same position might be somewhat debilitating for their booking going forward.
I would agree definitely with Brodie Lee in that regard, but obviously we've sort of mentioned in a previous episode that with a loss, Brodie Lee, Mr. Brodie Lee as a character, can take this loss and do something with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Lance Archer, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that because you look at, I agree with that. Like both guys losing is not the greatest thing, but when you even look at the stats in this match, he didn't do anything different in this match than he did previously.
Yeah.
So it's sort of I see what they're saying about both big guys, eating loss here, but Archer didn't do anything differently. He just got distracted by Iron Mike Tyson and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I get it. The distraction thing being there to keep him strong.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the most obvious path forward now. Like,
that's true.
I really don't want to see the WWE thing of, don't want him to be Intercontinental Champion. We want to push him into the world title picture. So he's going to lose the Intercontinental title shot, and then we'll have him challenge for the big one, the next pay-per-view. For me, that's like really dumb booking.
Yeah, I guess we have the TNT title tournament battle royal thing on the upcoming Wednesday to figure out what happens next with Cody. But obviously Lance could still be involved. Lance could even win that match, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
We could always, I guess you can also do the Brotherhood, Cody and Dustin Rhodes versus Lance Archer and Shawn Spears, which is weird. But then you get Tully there as well. Ooh. Yeah, Tully and Jake on one side versus Arn. That's something. No, but yeah, it's these interesting ideas that they're playing with, and it's the same idea that we sort of talked about. Mr. Brodie Lee is at pay-per-views, wins and losses truly like they are important, and we're going to have a win and loss. So what happens to the loser?
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, it's the same thing as we'll eventually get to with the Inner Circle, I guess. But let's keep moving down the card. Oh, what should I say? I gave this match 3 1/4 is what I gave it.
Interesting.
I really like this show.
Oh no, I'm not going low on that. It was a good match. I was engaged. Was it very good? No, it was not. I'd give it 3 because I didn't like the overly booked. Yeah, 3. Give it a 3.
Understandable. Let's keep moving down to a match that was not what we thought we were going to get, obviously, with what happened on the previous AEW Dynamite. It was Kris Statlander defeating Penelope Ford, who, of course, replaced Britt Baker in the singles match, 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Quickly, let's talk about this 5-minute match here. What happened?
Yeah, will we... how much detail do you want to go into? Will we kind of rush through this one so to not drag on forever?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard because it's obviously not what we thought. I do want to talk about just that beautiful chef's kiss of a match offense graph. That it's just 2 lines intersecting. That's like, Kris Statlander did not start off with a lot of offense, and then she beat her. She got more.
Yeah. So if this was a football match, this is the tale of 2 halves. This is an 8 minutes 11 seconds match. Ford starts strong with around 38 offense value in the first 5 minutes, and then sinks to like 25 in the second. Statlander's around like 24 kind of value at the beginning, and then ends up at around 38 by the end. So it's a cross.
Yeah. No, I thought this was good. I thought it was really. I gave it 3 stars.
It was good.
I give it 3 stars. I thought it was a good match. Very simple story. Obviously, they lost a lot of build that was heading with the Britt Baker aspect of it all. I imagine if Britt Baker was in it, she probably would have won.
I think so, yeah.
But I thought this was still good. I thought Penelope Ford gets a lot of offense in. She looks good. Good amount of strikes. She didn't really have the top numbers in every category per se, but she had a lot of pin attempts, which you always got. It's the same sort of idea of football, right? Is that you got to go for a lot of shots because
Yeah.
some of those shots are going to be goals.
Yeah, well, that's fine. No, it's fine. I can talk with that. I know proper sports. Um, so Cristiano Ronaldo, second best football player in the world, generally hit top of the charts for like shots attempted. He shoots all of the time, and a lot of them go in, a lot of them miss. But he scores an awful lot of goals, and it is he's buying a ticket, and Penelope Ford bought a ticket here, but Statlander was too much for her. And I don't know, I would say that like Penelope Ford sometimes comes in for criticism for her stuff being a bit clunky, like it looks great, but it doesn't always fit together, a bit like Private Party.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of criticism of her. It was in that Fatal 4-Way match. There's a bit where Britt Baker's like waiting around for a long time before Ford hits the kind of gymnastics kind of cutter thing, and that she was obviously supposed to hit next in the match, and the timing wasn't there. But I don't think any of that was present in this match. And I thought Kris Statlander was absolutely fantastic. She shone through. She was impactful, and she was very, very charismatic. For me, she really, really shone through in this match. I give it about 2.75, maybe a 3. It was short, but it was an easy watch. Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's one of the things with Penelope Ford. She is. I feel like Penelope Ford is like the embodiment of the AEW women's division in the sense that they're still a little green. They still have a lot of work to do, but every once in a while they get something that really works.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah.
That she in this match, she's not always the best. She has a lot of flashy stuff, but sometimes she gets it and she goes for it. And it was this is a great job on Penelope Ford stepping up into this match. I thought she did a really good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Let's keep moving down the line, which was oh my god, what a match! Dustin Rhodes versus Shawn Spears. Oh my god, oh man, let's talk about it. I can talk about it for hours, for days even.
Right, this was crap. I don't know who emailed Vince McMahon and asked him how they should book this match, but I'm sure he was absolutely delighted by the results. I'm sure he was laughing his backside off at whatever pyramid he lives in, surrounded by slaves. This was, and people have said that it was fine. It was a contrast, whatever. I didn't like this. I thought it was embarrassing for Shawn Spears. I don't think he was all that embarrassed. I think he maybe even enjoyed playing the part. I don't know, but this, and again, I'm not saying I would have rather seen Dustin Rhodes versus Shawn Spears for 15 minutes, but I think you could have cut this. I don't think we needed this. The show was long enough.
Yeah, I think this.
Go on, say something positive.
Sure. Yeah, I'll
contrast.
That's why I'm here. I think this match felt like a classic, like kind of crappy old WCW thing where it's like we're still using Dustin Rhodes in the promotion, so we need him to come back at some point. So we need a guy, a shitty little crappy little heel to make Dustin Rhodes look great on his return. And obviously, go back to the Jake Hager Dustin Rhodes match where it was also a thing that was like, that wasn't that good. I think maybe there's a consistent idea that when Dustin's doing a match, maybe he's going for that really old school sort of idea, and it just doesn't really play. I mean, remember, Dustin Rhodes had the bit in the other match in the Jake Hager match where he kisses Jake Hager's wife.
Yeah.
And in here, we have a weird sort of whatever stripped down match with Tully Blanchard on Shawn Spears' thing. I do.
Anybody should be having their clothes ripped off. I don't.
Unless it's a tuxedo match, then that's the whole point.
Just because it's a man, I still don't.
I do. There is the aspect. I agree with the idea that like there is this contrast to it, and I understand why people are like, "Oh, it's a contrast. It's a variety show sort of thing." But I think the problem with it was that the contrast was too different. It was too out of like it was just like we
Yeah.
had previously the last match was pretty
Could have still
good.
squashed him. Like it could have been Shawn Spears turns around, sees him, punches him a couple times, runs at him, power slam. Watch that power slam all day. It's incredible. Finisher pin. That would have been fine.
Yeah. But
It wasn't for me. I thought it was really, really dumb.
yeah, I agree. I mean, if there's anything to pull from the stats that we're looking at, I mean, Dustin caught Shawn by surprise and then just utterly destroyed him.
Beautiful. You should see this. You should see this graph, though. It's fantastic. Can you call it a graph?
if you thought the last graph was a chef's kiss, this graph is just, oh my god, it's a Thanos snap of a graph.
Yes. I would give this a 1, and I think I'm being generous.
Oh, if you're being generous, I was being overly generous. I gave it 1.25.
Oof.
There's maybe it's, I don't know. I was trying to be, I guess I was like in a good mood when I saw this, but it didn't make me overly upset.
Shall we move along? Because I have another contrast for you.
Let's move along because I have something better to do, which is talk about Hikaru Shida defeating Nyla Rose in a no disqualification, no countout match to win the AEW Women's World Championship. You said you have another contrast. What are we talking about here?
Well, if the function of the Shawn Spears nonsense was to lower the bar so that this could kick the bar into the stratosphere, it worked. This would have been my favorite thing on the card if it wasn't for the last match. I really enjoyed this. I think Hikaru Shida is an absolute star. I think she's fantastic. She really brought the charisma, the intensity, and yeah, these two wrestled a really, really good match.
Yeah, I thought this was really, really good. Looking at these stats here, the biggest conclusion I can draw out of this, obviously it being a no DQ, I didn't really have a preview set up for it, but I do have to shout out, of course, the the weapon attack stat, where for fouls. We talked about it for weeks about how we didn't have a weapon attack stat, and guess what, baby? You love to see it. Here it is. You love it. But no, what I picked out from it stats wise is just that Hikaru Shida is a good technical wrestler, and I think Hikaru Shida just out wrestled Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose 15 weapon attacks, 7 grapples, decent amount of reversals and pin attempts and stuff, constantly trying to beat down Hikaru Shida, but Shida
just for sorry to jump in, just for emphasis there, Hikaru Shida threw 35 strikes and used weapons or did what would usually be called a foul 7 times. Nyla Rose 13 strikes and 15 either weapon strikes or maneuvers that within traditional rules would have been a foul. So she's gone out with the traditional rules more in this match than she's done any other form of attack.
Yeah, I mean, and then even looking at the sort of the macros of it all, like 57% match offense for Shida, which was beating Nyla Rose by 43. Reversal rate for Shida was 22 versus Nyla Rose's 13. We talked about earlier that the more strike downs you do won't necessarily lead you to a victory. Even though not a lot of data, we sort of talked about that. But even when we reference, like, I guess what that would actually also show is that not doing a lot of strike downs lead to a victory, which in this case, this is supported. 11% Shida versus Nyla Rose's strike down rate of 23%. I guess strike down was one more strike down, but comparatively to the rest of her offense.
The data was done on like quantity of strike downs rather than like strike down rate. I haven't gone into that yet.
Yeah, I think that's what this match tells me, is that Shida just was a better technical wrestler than Nyla Rose.
Yeah. And it's really interesting the way that Nyla Rose is booked in AEW, dominant monster. 43% offense isn't unusual for her. She rarely dominates her opponents in the match. Like she hits big moves and they look impactful, and that's how they're presenting her as dominant. It's not by prolonged periods of like beating down.
No, it's not. Yeah, no, I thought this was a really good match. I think Shida did a really good job. I mean, looking at that flow of offense graph, Nyla Rose starts off very hot and heavy, but just Hikaru Shida just consistent. She gets the little bit of comeback, but stays consistent. About doing more than her.
Yeah, it was a good flow that they gave the match. Nyla Rose, really, really strong start, and then kind of crashed and tried to rally, but she didn't let her, and that was it.
It was a great match. It was, I think it was like the greatest. I might have. It's definitely in the. I think it's in the top 5 women's division matches. Not in this promotion
AEW.
In AEW. It's definitely up there. This was a really good match.
I don't know if I think they. I was about to say I don't know if they've done anything better. I would say the Britt Baker Hikaru Shida match was better, and then maybe this one.
I think top 5 would be Baker Shida this match. I think the first ever, the Kylie Ray match.
Oh yeah, that was a good match.
That was really good. I think Riho Nyla was pretty good, the first one.
Yeah.
And then maybe is that 5? Maybe.
Oh no, I wasn't counting. I was just listening to the matches.
If I had to think of another one, maybe the January 1st Fatal 4-Way for the title. I think that was also fairly good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. This was a really good match. I gave it 3.5 stars.
This is number 2 for me. Maybe recency bias, but yeah.
Yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't. There's nothing really much to say to pull out of it in terms of the technical stuff because we were sort of looking more at the men's division previously. And we'll do a better job, I guess, folks, looking at the women's and tags. But this match was good. I mean, looking at just these match stats. I mean, like we said, Shida out-technicaled Nyla Rose and out-technicaled the Monster. That's all you have to do, folks. 3.5 stars. Slap it on there.
3.75. I think I'm going. I don't think I'm going to hit 4.
That's and I get that. I think there's a little bit of the walk and brawl element that
Yeah.
That you want.
And yeah, that's a good point. I don't usually. Actually, no, that's not true. I was about to say I don't usually enjoy these matches. Actually, I do. I enjoy both types, so it's fine. Okay.
Then I guess we'll move on. We'll move on to the final main event.
Sparkling analysis there.
Let's move on to the main event, which was the Stadium Stampede match, the first ever Stadium Stampede match, where it was the Elite, Adam Page, Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, and Matt Hardy defeating the Inner Circle team of Jericho, Hager, Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz. Obviously, like we talked about way earlier in the show, not really much statistical analysis when it comes here because it was just, talking walking brawls. That was that. But what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts of this match, Craig?
Do you want to share first? The way that this is set up, it's as the host, you then have to throw it to me. What did you think?
Oh, throw a little throwback here. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Good.
I liked it. Were you concerned that I wouldn't like it?
No, it's just like, what's your analysis? I liked it.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Obviously, it's hard to talk about it. The basis of the show is statistics and analytics, and it's really difficult to do. Talk about that part. It's really we're sort of just reviewing the match and what we thought about it. I thought it was really, really good. Obviously, this was a semi-pre-taped. I think it might have been the whole thing was pre-taped.
I think it was pre-taped, yeah.
I guess you can argue that it's another one of those cinematic matches, which I was talking with my co-host from Hit the Books, Mikey, and I said that was really, really good. I thought it was great, honestly. But I liked it that no one on the internet seems to be talking about this being a cinematic match. And I think part of the reason they're not doing that is because it was shot like a wrestling match. It was shot like a walk and brawl sort of thing, even though there was parts, it was pre-taped and there was parts that it was obviously meant to be sort of cinematic with the whole matter of fact or the bar scene with Hager and Page.
Do you know what? I've just put this together in my head now. It was more like the Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson match than any of the other cinematic matches.
Yeah, I would say that which had cinematic-esque elements.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely something that it stayed true to being a wrestling match first and not a movie first.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Obviously, there's some times where it was a movie, but I still liked it. I thought, in terms of it being more like a wrestling match, I would compare it to WWE's Money in the Bank match compared to its other sort of things. But would also say, caveat to that, was that this match's comedy was way better. It wasn't like hokey or anything. I thought it was funny. I thought it was good.
I really enjoyed the Money in the Bank ladder match.
You were a big fan of the Money in the Bank ladder match?
Nobody else did, but I really liked it.
Hold on, is that fact or are you being sarcastic? It's really hard to tell sometimes.
I'm quite sarcastic quite a lot, but no, I genuinely like the Money in the Bank ladder match.
Oh man, this is a conversation we are going to have off air.
Which will get derision from a lot of people.
This is a conversation you and I will have off air. But yeah,
I think for that match, it's because the way that I look at AEW and WWE are very different.
Yeah, they're in way different leagues, right?
Yes,
I mean they are.
Like, oh, well done, guys. That's a really good match. Go get them, WWE. Kind of like talking to a child, where it's like AEW is like, huh, that little bit there didn't really make as much sense as it could have.
Yeah. And also there's faith behind AEW versus WWE, where you're just like, huh, okay. Like there's so many comments about like you come in expecting it to be bad. Where here I've never come in expecting a match to be bad. Even Dustin Rhodes Spears, I came in expecting it to be like a match. Then being let down. But that's besides the point.
I would have criticized that heavily if it was WWE as well. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was good. Like I said, it was shot like a wrestling match, so it was great. There's so many great moments in it. Of course, the 100-yard touchdown, the moonsault off the field goal, the bar scene in general, I thought was great.
The bar scene was tremendous.
Oh, so good. I'm trying to think. I did not like the Matt Hardy matter of fact stuff as much, but it was played down a little bit. It was still kind of good.
I was okay with that. I wasn't as hard on that as a lot of people have been.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying at the very least it wasn't as good as other things that I enjoyed. Or what was it? Ortiz getting his bell rung and then just convulsing for a full minute.
Yeah. Do you know what I did like? I liked the bit where Ortiz and Santana were leaving the pool, and I think it was Ortiz just went, "He dead," and they just looked like so okay with it. They just like killed the guy, and they're like,
"That's fine. That's fine, I guess."
Yeah.
No, I like the idea that like Santana Ortiz. I liked that it was Santana Ortiz. Because we do have like actual wrestlers in every once in a while, but every once in a while, everyone in this promotion kind of like amps up the cartooniness a little bit, especially Ortiz. He's not afraid to become a cartoon character.
But
which I think it's fine, because at the same time, versus other promotions, they're amping up the cartooniness, but it's still within the world of a wrestling match or wrestling show. So it still kind of works, which I think is fine. What did you think of this match?
This wasn't portrayed as they were going to do blood and guts. This didn't have the same kind of people came in kind of expecting something a bit crazy and probably like a plunder brawl or some high spots. And when you're going into that kind of thing and you get lots of comedy thrown in as well, you're like, fine. Yeah. If you tuned into Dominion 2018 and saw this in the Okada Kenny Omega main event, you'd be furious because it's not what you tuned in for.
Yeah, I think watching what you said, the BTE Matt Jackson versus Nick Jackson match, then also watching the Chris Jericho Sammy Guevara versus Matt Hardy and Kenny Omega match, that brawl street fight match. Watching those two matches, you're sort of prepared to. There is a level of expectation that you're like, okay, I've seen what it kind of might be before, and I liked what they did. So going into this match, you're like, okay, I think I'm excited.
I think this and that's really good point to bring up. I think this was the evolution of that street match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree. What did you think of this match?
I loved it. It was great. I wouldn't ever rate this kind of match as highly as some of like my favorite wrestling matches that are more like competition based sports ish.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of thought it was more a bit like a feature episode. It was hilarious. Loved Chris Jericho doing the witch hat. He just did the same thing again, but I loved it so much the first time. Happy to be reminded of that.
Mhm.
I've called it the VAR spot, but like I think they called it challenging the call in
Oh,
American
yes.
football when he challenged Aubrey Edwards on the 2 counts, and then they had the argument in the tent, and then they come out, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm not gonna. Oh, I'm trying not to swear on this because, like, as a teacher, I feel like I shouldn't swear on the internet, so I'm not gonna." But he's like, "You're a referee." Like that. The bar with the milk and the buckshot lariat off Kenny Omega's back, them just hitting Hager repeatedly with those sugar glass champagne bottles.
I
Um,
I can't believe every single one of those worked.
yeah, I know.
I
After the other one,
like I said, I worked in production. If you hit those sugar glass champagne bottles incorrectly on someone, it will actually hurt. It would actually
all right.
become like a solid thing.
Oh yikes!
Which is why sort of Omega was holding it and like hitting him with the side of the bottle instead of
Mhm.
knocking him over the head with like the edge of the bottom
Right.
potentially, because that's
All
what the
right.
hard part
Awesome.
is. Fun fact, fun production fact.
Inside knowledge.
Yeah.
The locomotion Northern Lights suplexes for the 100 yards. That was funny, even though they obviously didn't do it for 100 yards. But doing that moonsault with the ribs from Matt Jackson as well. But the MVP of this match, was Sammy Guevara,
Yes.
just running away from the horse, running away from the golf cart, getting blasted in the face by sprinklers. I think Sammy Guevara is the embodiment of what AEW have done, the way that they've built these guys. Like I didn't know who Sammy Guevara was when he turned up holding I think it was the AAA Cruiserweight Championship or whatever it was when he first turned up.
Yeah.
I had no interest in him. And, now he's one of my favorite things on the show. He's so good in the ring. He sells like crazy.
Hmm.
He's hilarious. He's for me been the real alongside Jungle Boy, MGF, Darby Allin, Hikaru Shida, Britt Baker. He for me is slightly above them in like the success story of AEW building their own homegrown stars, which they've done. They've arguably done a better job of producing their own stars in this calendar year that
Yeah.
they've been a company than the Goliath that WWE has.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about that, like what's happening now in AEW is great. You have obviously your great competitors like a Cody, Omega, Jericho, whatever. But it sort of has that New Japan young lionness, not young lion. Well, I guess
Yeah.
it also applies to like Shida and stuff. But young lions and young lionesses, where when we get down the line and a Darby or MJF or Jungle Boy or whoever eventually gets their first, Sammy Guevara, whoever gets that AEW World Championship, from that new class sort of idea,
Mhm.
it's going to be huge. It's going to feel like a huge moment, and we're all going to be very, I mean, hopefully at the very least, we'll be very much, we'll be on board, because we've seen them from the beginning, um, of this promotion and seen how they grow and see how they slowly been climbing up this ladder, and that when Darby eventually wins it, it's going to be a huge moment.
Even
And
just when Darby beats Cody.
yeah, even then, like and that's gonna be a huge moment. You're gonna feel great, and then it's gonna keep going. And then maybe he won't win the title for another year after he beats
Mhm.
Cody, but we're gonna get there. We're going to slowly build our way up there. That when someone wins it, you're like, okay, that's a star now. That like whoever of this new class wins it, probably they'll be a star immediately. Well, in the wrestling world, I'm not sure if they're gonna break out in the new into everything else, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right. They have almost the tiers there.
yeah, Yeah, there it's and what that is, what it comes down to is that is pro wrestling. That's how you book pro
Mhm.
wrestling. Is you need to showcase younger talent or not well known talent. I think, you know the internet wrestling community obviously knows who NXT people are. So when you see them on TV, they're not really working well. It's really tough because you're like, this guy's a former NXT North American champion. How is he not working on SmackDown? But
Nakamura. I've been thinking about recently how much I used to love Nakamura and how excited I was when he turned up on SmackDown with that violinist for his formerly amazing entrance to where he is now, being like a intercontinental title jobber almost.
yeah, or that John Cena Shinsuke Nakamura match.
Mm.
Oh, so good. Where the winner goes on to face Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam. This was a weird time. But yeah, no, like, and it was I did like math on it way ago, and it actually has kind of proven to be somewhat true. But it like the internet wrestling community on Twitter knows NXT enough, but we forget that the actual audience of 2 point whatever million people have no idea what NXT is.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because there's only like, I forget the math was. I would have to look it up. It was like an old tweet from a year ago, but it was basically like only there's 1.5 millions, or there's like 1.5 million subscribers to the network, and there's 2.5 million people that watch Raw on a weekly thing or whatever.
Once time, yeah.
So that means like a million people, when Shinsuke Nakamura shows up on TV, a million people have no idea who that is. And that doesn't even count how many people that subscribe to the network watch NXT. So yeah, it's this idea that like we're as a community, we're like, oh, he just shows up and we're expecting him to be a thing, and then we disappoint ourselves because our expectations are so high. We're here, we see Sammy Guevara, and he slowly gets up. Even when it's like Brodie Lee or Lance Archer, who there's a little bit more hype or whatever, we slowly see them build up. Then they get it, then they lose, and then they'll go back down, and then they'll build up again down the line. Will Brodie win the AEW World Heavyweight Championship down the line from years from now? Maybe. I have no idea. But we're slowly going to build there. He's going to come back, and he's going to be powerful, or more powerful than before. I don't know. Whatever the hell's going to happen. But that's my point, is that basically it's like they're doing a great job of building up people.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I gave this match 4.25 stars. I was very generous. I thought it was great. I really liked it.
It was great. I wouldn't say excellent. Like 4.25 from me, I think, as well.
We've reached the consensus.
We have.
Well, that is, everybody. That is Double or Nothing. That's a review or Double or Nothing. Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening. But before we go, we sort of want to. I guess we were to talk about some other stuff. Do we still want to have time for talking about stuff, Craig?
I don't know. I'm very tired.
I don't know. It's an hour 30, but also it's an important discussion, probably, right?
Yes.
We probably shouldn't get away from going it, because obviously we're both sort of what's the word I want to say? It's important. You know what I mean? It's an important thing to talk about. So, do you want to open up the conversation?
I was just like, obviously being like a wrestling fan and being somebody, probably all spend too much time on Twitter, and it's kind of hard not to, the kind of the really tragic story that came out this week about Hana Kimura in Japan, and the kind of the awful end to her life that was really tragic and needless, and the story around it is really depressing and kind of anger inducing, and it's kind of, and then it opened the door to kind of important conversations about how people treat each other online, and how people attack others to kind of because of their own self-esteem issues. And yeah, it's just kind of been kind of hard to avoid. And I don't know about yourself, Ryan, but I kind of sponge all that stuff up, and it kind of, when you are reading those things and seeing people's reaction to it, it's it's not really something that you can just brush off.
Yeah, I mean, should say if you don't know what we're talking about, well, last Friday or Saturday or something, whatever it was, Stardom wrestler, Japanese wrestler Hana Kimura passed away at the age of 22, which is horrendous. But it appears, well, obviously we don't know, I guess, specific details, but it would appear that it would be due to some sort of cyberbullying that took place online that Hana probably did not enjoy. But yeah, we're not gonna maybe we're not doing really a retrospective on Hana Kimura's life because I mean I was just starting to get into Stardom this past couple of months, so I don't know about you, Craig, but I don't know enough about her to really say at this point. But you and I have both been on the internet for a long time, so we do want to talk about just the idea of like how not only the internet but definitely like wrestling Twitter and everything works. And like you said, to answer your thing about sponging things up. I made a tweet like a while ago where it was one of those days where I was just getting like bogged down and I was just getting so upset and I don't want to. It's this thing that I've dealt with where it comes to like Hit the Books, our Twitter account. When I've talked with Mikey before, it's like I personally, as me being Ryan Neitzey, my own person, I would love to not be on Twitter. The problem being is that as a podcast, the only way for me to, talk about my show and talk about our brand or whatever is to be on Twitter, is to be the advertising and stuff. I would love to not be on Twitter because there's so much crap that is, like you said, needless. It's, even the next day after Hana Kimura, there's a whole bunch of nonsense that's happening on Twitter about this other guy that I'm not even going to talk about because who gives a shit about that person. But it's just there's no reason for it. It's something that I've also respected about you when all that stuff that we sort of mentioned earlier was happening was that it's people like to dog on others and they like to be part of the winners and they like to respect the check markers. You know what I
See
mean?
that this is the thing that I get that makes me really very uncomfortable about Twitter is how that check mark that you've just referenced almost like creates a tier
Yeah,
system on Twitter and like a tier system of humans and the way that like all the peasants find the tick mark to rally behind to give themselves some kind of meaning. I find that really uncomfortable to see. I really don't like when people are like turn themselves into like a Seth Rollins guy
yeah.
or a Sasha Banks girl. And
Stan. Well, let's say Stan. Let's do the
oh,
proper terms.
yeah, I I've been talking about this a lot, but like one of the guys tweeted out about idol culture. They called it idol
Yeah,
culture,
yeah,
and that's what it is. It's like people that need that are struggling and then look for significance by hitching their wagon to somebody on the internet and then going to war for them on the internet, and it's it's a really disquieting thing.
and you alluded to this way earlier, but the idea that people, I think, and obviously people forget all the time, is that we live in the real world, and the internet, not just social media, but the internet in general, is this secondary world. That this is your online persona or whatever. What that means, like you said earlier, it's fake. It's not. It's something that
It can be fake. It
it,
doesn't have to be.
it doesn't have to be, but in a utopian society, it will be we're just a normal people are on there and just we're talking about whatever or whatever. But we're not a utopian society. There are people that slip through the cracks, as we know about the pandemic that's happening. There are people that don't care about it, and in a utopian society, everyone will be being social distance and will have masks on and everything. But there's obviously people that don't. So maybe that's a broader conversation, but at least when it comes to the internet or at the very least social media, it's that you can put on whatever you want. You can display whatever you want. And the problem with that is that it's the same thing. It's the thing that comes with like text messages, is that whatever you read online in terms of social media, you have no idea what the sarcasm behind it is, what the inflection behind anything is because it's all written. You have no idea what they're trying to say. You know, when I don't know when MJF thinks that it's not a good not when he doesn't have a dive, like you don't know if he's being sarcastic or whatnot, and then everyone else who thinks he's a real person dogs on someone.
And it's ridiculous. And but you're right, and like you're talking about the texting, and like that's so very relevant because I said 80%, probably like 80% of human communication is non-verbal.
Yeah.
So like, how do you do non-verbal communication for a screen? You don't. It doesn't come through in text.
Yeah.
And yeah, I struggle all the time. I quite often get defensive with people, and they're like, "Oh no, I wasn't trying to be offensive or whatever. I just meant this." I'm like, "Oh yeah, sorry, sorry." Being on Twitter sometimes makes you be defensive because you just assume that the person that said something that might be offensive or it might not probably was meaning to be offensive, and that's not a good space. I think where I differ from yourself, and I completely respect the not wanting to be on Twitter, but I'm quite stubborn with these things, and I really don't think that social media should be what it is. In that, like, it shouldn't cause so much grief and it shouldn't cause so much issues.
Yeah.
It really should be more positive, and like the fact that it's kind of really crappy at times is it's not like I don't believe that social media is causing people to behave like that. And I don't think that people can just blame Twitter for what is a cultural problem that like people are lost and they're, this kind of consumerist, individualist. I've gone very sociology, psychology, political here.
But I sort of referenced that like when it comes
Yeah.
to like the pandemic, there are people that are just ignoring what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. But even like the consumerism, individualist culture of like, you know, there are people, and I'm not a religious person, but people don't go to churches anymore. There are people spend less time in, going to like sports clubs, activity clubs, blah blah blah. And yeah, I think what you see online is people searching for a tribe and doing it in quite a unhealthy way.
Which, if I do want to say, if you are, of course, if anyone is out there getting bogged down on the internet or just in general, obviously always turn to some sort of mental health advisor. We are not mental health advisors in any capacity. Everyone struggles with their own thing, and when I say everyone, I do literally mean every single person struggles with their own thing. Whatever that may be, depression, anxiety, whatever that could be. So always turn to some sort of health official. But even on a way that what can you do to help yourself? Block, mute things, block people, and what maybe that is limiting the amount. I saw someone that says that they're like you're going to be then creating a vacuum, and yeah, you might be creating a vacuum of only ideas that you consider and stuff. But it's the idea that you need to
blocking hate is very different from blocking differing opinions.
Yes. Blocking hate is really different than because what is it? There can be criticism. You can criticize as long as it's a fair criticism. If it's something that's like not based in anything or just doesn't make any sense, it's unfair or whatever. Throw a block on that guy or gal or they or whatever they are, or profile picture, I should say. Block them. Just do it. It helps protect you at the very least.
I like to just throw up like a little thumbs up or a smiley face. If I ever go in and like disagree with people, I quite often just throw an emoji up there just to like, I feel like it just softens it a little bit. It's just like,
I know. I 100% agree. When I am trying to get a point across, if I read it back and it feels like this can be misinterpreted, I'll throw an emoji or whatever to try to convey what emotion I'm trying to say in the text.
The conveyance of like good intentions, I would describe that as.
Yes. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's social media. It's still very much the Wild West. You
Yeah,
know, it's a Wild West, and there aren't like, and it's tough, right? Because as much as it is a Wild West, and it is what it is, I mean, I am in the same boat. I think everyone using social media would be in the same boat. We don't want that to be controlled in a certain way. You know, you want to make the choice, but you don't want to, in other countries, like in Asian countries or whatever, there's walls that are blocked up that you can't see certain things. You don't want, we at the very least in America, we want our internet usage to be free and available to use as long as you can pay for internet or whatever.
yeah,
You don't want it to be controlled or bottlenecked or whatever. You want to be able to use the social media highway or whatever, but at the same time, it's like doing that allows a lot of negativity to also spread. So it's, six one way, half a dozen the other. Does I don't know, is that the phrase? I don't know.
yeah. No, it's. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. I get the kind of, and I don't trust the people that are making decisions to own the internet. I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if there needs to be stuff around anonymity online.
There's no cops, right? And even like reporting stuff to on Twitter doesn't always do things because you can always just make another account. There's
Yeah.
no cops. There's no Twitter cops, and that's the announcement of our new show, Twitter Cops, coming this
So
fall.
silly. It's so silly. I saw not Ryan Satin, not him, the other guy, Sean Ross Sapp,
Yeah,
like this morning responding to a troll who was like saying that, oh, your show is small time and rubbish or something. And he just turned around and went, well, I blocked you months ago and you've created a new account to tell me this.
yeah,
So who's small time? And it's just so, like, it's so unhealthy. It's
yeah.
a real symptom of like something going wrong.
I will also say though that there needs to be like, in terms of the leaders of the internet wrestling community or whatever, there needs to be a little bit more like discretion on what you do. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see Meltzer or Sean Ross Sapp or Ryan Satin or whatever.
Well, Meltzer's promoting it.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to see Meltzer talking to
Yeah,
trolls online.
yeah, he's promoting them. That's what he like. Yeah, he's part of the issue as much as he like is asking people to read things before they criticize him or like pointing out how, and essentially he's just putting people down. Like he's just he's promoting it.
He's promoting the negative comments, but then he's also promoting it with its own negative comments, even if it's bad. Like saying that like what you're saying is awful.
Yeah,
It's still like it's just brewing more hate.
yeah.
Um,
It's not compassionate.
Yeah, I'm not obviously I'm not saying if someone says something like racist online, I'm not saying that we shouldn't like shit on the guy, but
Mhm.
it is this thing of like it's just brewing more, like you said, lack of compassion. It's just brewing more and more hate when it's like, oh, let's dogpile on this person,
Yeah,
and
and
that's not creating a thing. That's not helping
and
that
you're
person.
because you're right, and I can really remember seeing a really prominent female wrestler on Twitter,
Yeah,
quote retweeting pictures that some guy had sent her, and like talking about how creepy and unpleasant and hideous it is, and sympathy to her because it must be horrible to have to deal with that. But like straight away, I could just tell that the guy in that pictures that was like being creepy had some kind of learning disability.
mm-hmm.
And it's just they there's a lot of like these leaders, as you called them, going between each other, kind of mocking the people that are behaving like this, and that doesn't help either.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't, like, just mocking the people that are people that are being racist and disgusting. Like you shouldn't have to deal with this, but like just mocking and treating them like they're dirt is part of the issue. And again, it's really unfair that they're in the position where people are saying these things to them and sending them these things, and that is where this conversation started.
Yeah.
But yeah,
What I'm thinking about is that, I talked about that there's no police on on social
yeah,
media. The problem is that people are self-policing, which
mhm,
becomes an issue. It's a thing that I talk about, like, when, like, I'm not a fan of, like, when there's sometimes in families and huge families where you have, let's say you have 7 kids or whatever. And sometimes, the older kid has to basically raise the younger kid,
mhm,
because the parent has to do so much extra effort.
yeah.
And basically, it's like, well, it's not their job, is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say. It's
the
like,
older kids polices by like telling them what to do, not doing it, and then so they hit them or something.
yeah, or the older kid is basically losing out on their childhood because they have to now
Mm,
be an adult, basically.
yeah,
And it's not their job. That's not their job to do. It's the same thing
no,
on the internet. It's like, it's no
that's
one's job.
a really interesting way to look at it. It's
It's
not their job to have to deal with it.
it's not their job to have to deal with it. And we're obviously not saying that any of those instances where you're trying to defend yourself, you're in the wrong. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying that, like, that's self-policing, that when you have the group of people, the stands, that then dogpile on someone, then it's just
Yeah,
it's not solving the issue, is what I'm trying to say,
I
I
just completely
guess.
understand. I'm not criticizing people for lashing out. I suppose it's just uh I don't know, illustrating of like how things perhaps maybe could be. Like it's completely understandable if you're getting dunked on and dogpiled by all these guys with fake accounts that you might lash out and say something awful to them. That's understandable. I suppose I don't want to see it as being cool that people, with the blue ticks are having a very public in joke about that's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see
Yeah.
it it as a thing like that. I think that is kind of building barriers and kind of exacerbating hierarchies.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, yeah, I think of just my last point is, I think of this. Have you ever seen the TV show Community?
Yes, I've been watching Community recently, actually.
Oh, on Netflix, I believe is what it is.
Mhm.
Have you gotten to the season? Have you watched season 5? I think.
Nah, I'm on about 4.
No, season 4. Oh, the worst season.
Is it? Oh,
Um,
that's maybe why I've kind of slowed down with it.
that's I'll tell you off air why it's the worst season. But in season 5, there's an episode called Meow Meow Beans,
Mhm.
famous episode.
Right.
It's sort of, it was actually done before a very famous Black Mirror episode, because the basic premise is that, like, it's everyone has an app where you can
Oh,
rate other people.
I know this Black Mirror episode though.
Yeah, you have an app that you can rate other
Yeah.
people, and it's making some sort of analogy about social media, and it's that sort of thing of, like, when you have, like, a 5 out of 5 person, like a check marked person, it's like
Yeah.
you view them at a higher level, like they are some sort of god or whatever. That, like, they're a celebrity. I should not god, but celebrity or whatever. That, like, oh, I have
Yeah.
to immediately agree with what you're saying because you have a check mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what is really funny? So I keep talking about this grapple podcast that I really enjoyed the other, and I've linked it all over my Twitter feeds yesterday because it was like all this stuff, and it was confirmation bias. These guys were saying stuff I thought kind of think, so I now think they're great.
Hmm.
You know, that's how confirmation bias works. But they referenced that Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
No. Yeah.
People are kind of starting to think in similar lines of thought.
Well, you got to get to the Meow Meow Memes episode because they did it first.
Did they? All right, okay.
I'm a big fan of Community. That's why I always go to Community for stuff because I'm really really big fan of that show. But yeah, no, it's a great episode because it's the same sort of idea that Black Mirror did
Mhm.
afterwards, but it's a comedy, so it's, has a little
Yeah,
bit funnier
yeah, sure.
stuff in there. Um, God, so I'm just thinking about that episode now. Anyway, what a tangent to go off. We need to put a timer on me when I'm going on tangents. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed that, sort of discussion about whatever we had, but also discuss our review on Double or Nothing. If you enjoyed it, please, of course, share this on all your social medias if you so choose, but also rate it on iTunes. Give a 5-star review, and you can, help us out a little bit more, get more people to see it, and just let us know. We'll appreciate it. We'll shout you out on an episode. If you would like to subscribe, you can also subscribe and get more episodes of this. Hopefully, not hopefully, but presumably we'll be out on Monday next week. We'll be back on the normal schedule. Doing more AEW Dynamite. Craig, I'm really excited because I'm really excited for potential New Japan coming back. Maybe we can do some New Japan on the show. Obviously, the stats of New Japan maybe need to be for this year be padded up a little bit more.
Yeah, it's not going as planned.
But we'll get there when we get there. I'll figure it out when that happens. But at the very least, you can subscribe and get more shows. Not only wrestling statistics every Monday, but of course every Friday I'm on the show Hit the Books, which is a SmackDown versus Raw fantasy booking podcast. Where we write every single match, segment, result of Raw and also SmackDown, and we go head to head where listeners can vote on who had the better card that week. I lost last week, so I'm greatly upset about it, but I'm gonna come back swinging next week, this Friday. Craig, what do you have to promote?
Me, I don't even know. What do I have to promote? Be nice to people. If you're struggling during the pandemic, then go for a walk, try some mindfulness. Exercise is always good. Read some Matt Haig, he's good. Go to therapy if you need to, it works. Let's be nice. I'm not going to promote myself because I'm virtue signaling.
No, I guess it's fair. I guess that might be fair. I feel awkward too. Now let me
follow PW Musings on Twitter for just the stats. If you want to follow me, where I will say stuff about the stats and the stats, it's Craig PW Musings.
Yeah, we understand that we may be virtue signaling now, but we're now at the point of the show where we have to do some plugs. Maybe we didn't plan this out properly, but if we acknowledged it, maybe it's okay. I have no idea. Anyways,
human. It's
fine.
I
don't know. Anyways, at Hit the Books Pod on Twitter, you can follow us there for more stuff. If you want to follow me, it's at Ryan Neitzey. I rarely tweet. Like I said, I'm one of those people that also just reads Twitter and has a tough time coming up with things to say. But if you want to follow me at Ryan Neitzey, sometimes I'll say funny things or whatever, or dogpile on the American presidency. Anyways, thank you everybody for listening to this week's episode. Like always, we thank you so much for listening, and thank you for joining us. We got plenty more content coming up, obviously. There's plenty more AEW Dynamite, so we're excited for what we can do for you coming down the line. Like I said, we love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a good day.